Okay, so we're on YouTube now.
Great. Okay, I think we might as well crack on. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the current Planning Advisory Committee meeting. As ever, please bear with us if there's any technical issues or if the meeting has to be halted for any reason. The minutes will be posted on our website as usual. Please be aware, as ever, this meeting is being recorded. All attendees are automatically muted unless you want to speak. We would ask attendees to pose questions and comments through the Q&A board, and attendees are not visible on video. Attendees' names will become visible if their question is answered. If attendees would like to ask their question directly, we'll attempt to enable them to join the meeting via video or just audio if they prefer. Please note this element will then be recorded. Councillors, if you wish to comment or ask a question, please physically raise your hand so I or Hannah can clearly see you. Similarly, voting councillors, I think we're all voting councillors tonight. Again, please raise your hand until it's being recorded. Jane will clerk as normal, help to ensure we don't miss any important comments or questions, and attempt to show any plans, photos on screen where necessary, and Hannah will take the minutes. And as ever, we're running the meeting as a safe space. We encourage all participants to be respectful of others' opinions and views, and please be minded that what you say may impact on the emotions of others. Okay, agenda item number 1. Any comments, questions or information from public? We have no public. So any questions or comments from councillors? Great. Agenda item number 2. Any apologies for absence, Hannah?
We've got apologies from Sheila Gore, Anita Collier, Paul Horton, and also Mark Dorrington was having connectivity issues, so
right.
You may be able to join us or may not be.
Okay, thank you very much. To agree the minutes from the meeting of the 11th of March, which hopefully everyone has had a look at, got in front of me. Any questions from those minutes? No, excellent. If I could get someone to propose them, please. Thank you, Anne. Someone to second. And
that's unanimous. Thank you.
To consider current applicant. I'm feeling really unloved tonight, I must admit. Shocking. The sun's out. Consider current applications. Jane, I think there was 3 or 4, wasn't there, that we intended to look at. So,
have we done declarations of interest?
No, we haven't. Any declarations of interest? Well, I know there is a declaration of interest from Councillor Dorrington for item number 534. And Lizzie, sorry.
That's all right. Just marginal interests. 523, which is Forest Road. The architect is a friend of mine.
Right.
And then 529, 530, and 531, which are all the trees in Froomfield, as my manor, and so they're my neighbours, selection of neighbours. So they're just kind of marginal interests rather than kind of anything too serious.
Okay. I don't think that makes you ineligible to vote.
No, they're not financial interests.
Yeah, exactly. So. Yeah, but thanks anyway. That's great. Thanks, Lizzie. So Jane.
Yes. So the ones. Well, we did think that maybe the applicant for Gentle Street was going to join us, but they don't appear to have. So I'll just quickly run through what we've highlighted for discussion. So 70 Forest Road, 147 The Butts, 1 the Eagle Lane, 4 Gentle Street, and 25C Bath Street. So if we start with 70 Forest Road.
If Hannah, if I think it's Mr. or Mrs. Jones do attend the meeting, we'll change the running order around a bit. But I think until this time, we'll just run in chronological order.
Yeah. Okay, doke.
Thanks, Jane.
Okay. So just for anybody who might be viewing the meeting afterwards, to confirm that councillors have looked at all of the plans online in advance of the meeting, which in some cases we may show plans if it felt necessary, but if you're wondering why we're not looking at the plans, it's because they have all been looked at in advance of the meeting, and now we're going to discuss what our response will be. So we'll start with number 523 on our list, which is 70 Forest Road, Frome. It's the erection of a dwelling house. So you may recall we have seen this previously. We first saw it in April 2020, and that application was withdrawn. And we then saw another application in February this year, which was again withdrawn. The application was withdrawn on the advice of Mendip planners, who advised that the application, the proposals put forward were too large, and it was suggested that more modest dwelling on the site to blend in with the context of the cul-de-sac of bungalows was put forward. This would make it less dominant on the street scene and be more in keeping. It would also have minimal impact on the amenities of the neighbouring properties. Now, our comments on the previous application that was withdrawn was that we had no objection. However, we would like it to be a bit more aspirational in terms of the sustainability measures that are referred to in the design and access statement. When I last looked, there were actually 7 objections on Mendip's website from the neighbours, objecting to the design, issues around the access and lack of parking. There will be 2 parking spaces for the proposed dwelling and 2 parking spaces for the existing dwelling whose garden is being proposed for this application. Highways on the previous application didn't have any objection in terms of access or parking, and it should also be noted that it will be a shared driveway, which I think is part of the concern that has been raised by the neighbours. And the Civic Society said about this application that it was still effectively a 2-storey house. The pitch to the front moderates the appearance amongst the surrounding bungalows, but the window on the first floor northwest elevation will overlook the private rear gardens of houses to the rear. Now, about that, so what I've done, if you'll bear with me, I will try and share my screen. This always goes wrong. Yeah, bear with me while I just close down my second screen. Typical. Right. I try this every time and it never works. You'd think I would learn, wouldn't you? No, that's not worked, is it? Okay, so essentially, there is a. I'm just going to try something else. I don't know why it won't let me share my screen. So the windows that they're referring to do effectively back onto some properties to the rear, but those properties at the rear, it does have a grassed area. It's not a road, but it's like a grass pathway, and it's not clear to me that it will overlook, but you know, I'm only looking at it on an aerial plan, and as we have done in the past, it might be worth just asking that the case officer at Mendip actually assesses this when they do their site visit, because I must admit it didn't appear that would be the case to me, but you know, as I say, you know, I can't say that with any degree of confidence, so you know, I'll leave that to your discretion as to whether or not that's something that you think that we might want to ask.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Aha!
Yeah.
Now you can see it, can't you? Yeah.
I think.
Right. Okay. So just to make that clearer, this is 70 Forest Road,
Mm-hmm.
and this is the garden area on which they're proposing to build. You'll see on the block plan here, this is the position of the proposed dwelling. So the windows that the Civic Society are talking about are these windows here. So the top two here are actually within the slope of the roof, but there appears to be a strange little window here, which I'm assuming is the one they're concerned about. So that window would be on this boundary here and would look out over these properties here. And this is the pathway that I was talking about here. I think Rich has got his hand up, but
Sorry, Rich. I was looking at the plan. Sorry, Rich.
Just remind me, from height-wise, the roof,
Yeah.
it's not any higher than the other buildings around it, is it now?
These are bungalows, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so effectively the front of the property will appear to be a single
Yeah.
story, but the rear of it will be, it's 1.5 stories, if you like.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, yeah.
It's kind of built into the roof, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
To get that height, yeah, I thought
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it's a reasonably sized plot. I didn't have any issues with it as such, and I think my big issue was that obviously residents don't seem happy with it.
Yeah.
And it feels like that the developer needs to go back to neighbours and say, look, this is what we've changed, this is what it's going to look like, and kind of see if they can come to some sort of compromise. It seems unfortunate that they all don't like it, but it's hard to object to on planning grounds, seems to me.
Yeah, it is unfortunate, isn't it? It does seem to have caused a lot of local angst, for want of a better word, in that cul-de-sac, which is a shame.
And I wondered if it was because the previous one was too big, really, too oversized. And I wonder if they're still kind of thinking of that first version and making their complaints again based on that, or whether they still have some other genuine concerns. But I can't personally. I don't find myself objecting to it. I could make comments about what I might prefer to see, but they wouldn't be planning reasons. They'd just be my taste. So essentially, it's fine by me.
Yeah, because from as a street view, it's going to look like a bungalow, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the view across the path, I mean, it's quite a way to those other houses, that window. So I'm, overlooking, isn't they, really?
There's no notification that glass could be frosted or anything like that, Jane, not a bathroom or something like that?
No, the frosted windows are on one of the other elevations, so I'm assuming that's where the bathroom is. I mean, we didn't object to it previously, so I think it would be, that would have to be a very good reason to sort of change that now. But certainly we can refer to the concerns of the neighbours and just ask that it is checked for overlooking when on site. But as Rich said, I think, given that the highways didn't object, overlooking the possible overlooking is really the only issue to raise.
Yeah, I agree with Rich. I've got no real reason to object, quite frankly. I mean, it's a big plot. It's, adding another house to our stock sort of thing. And yeah, I mean, check the overlooking, and it's a shame that they seem to have fallen out with the neighbours, and one would hope that they could, I don't know, reach a.
And there's still in with the car park spaces. There seems to be still some garden space.
Yeah.
And it's still far enough away from the other. It seems to me to be in keeping with what's already.
It seems to tick all the boxes, doesn't it? At the end of the day. So.
Okay, so if you're happy to agree, similarly, no objection in principle. However, we would ask the case officer to take into consideration the objections from the neighbours and to check for any possible overlooking on the northwest elevation when on site.
Just one point. I know Civic Society weren't very happy with it. They seemed to take offence to it by saying it was still too large and pretended to be a one-storey house when it was really a two-storey house. And fine, but I don't agree with that. So
yeah. Okay. Shall we vote on that? Someone propose that, please. Thank you, Rich. Someone second. Thank you, ma'am. All those in favour or not?
Okay, and that's unanimous. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Steve, just apologise for losing my internet a bit a while ago. I take it you took declarations of interest. As you know, I have an interest in one of the applications for some tree pruning.
Yes, thank you, Mark. Yeah, that's been noted by Hannah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Hannah.
So, bear with me while I get my screen back in order. Closed everything so I could show you that. Right, the next application we're going to look at is number 147. Address is 147 The Butts, and on our list it is number 528. So this application is for a change of use of the existing vacant property into 5 flats. I've sent you the comments from Mendip Councillor Damon Hooton, who's the ward councillor for the area, who is concerned that there isn't any parking attached to this, and he was a bit concerned about the access being straight off of the road, but feels that could potentially be dealt with. So the history of this site is that it was previously a pub. I'm sure you can probably tell us what it was called. And then it was...
Is it the Weaver? Is it the Weaver?
Mark will know. Come on, Mark. You're itching to tell us.
You're muted.
Muted.
Good, you can't hear me swearing. I don't remember it as a pub at all. When did it stop being a pub?
I don't know actually. All right, let you off on that one. Okay, so it was previously a pub.
If Mark doesn't know, it's a long time ago.
And then it was a house in multiple occupation with 9 flats available, and it's now vacant. So it will have a separate lockable cycle and bin storage, and it will be market housing, presumably for rent, although that isn't specifically said. And just to say that when it was an HMO for 9 flats, there actually wasn't any parking associated with it then either.
I think the parking issue is, if I can comment, Steve, I think the parking issue is moot, really. That whole side of the Butts, they all come straight up onto the road. There's no parking for any of that whole terrace of houses between access automation down to the new flats, or relatively new flats, just at the roundabout. There was an old car parked on, sort of pulled into the side of this 147 that was removed recently. So I don't think there's any expectation of parking there. There would only be room for 1 car totally. If they put a little wall along the front there to right up to the road and a gate in it, they could keep bins in there. It would also stop anyone trying to park there, which might be a thing, but that's just a suggestion I had when I drove past it yesterday.
Yeah. Thanks, Mark. I totally agree with you, actually. Lizzie, sorry.
It looks like it has double yellow lines immediately outside the property anyway, so there wouldn't be on-street parking. So yeah, I think actually the suggestion they've made of the wall and the bike storage is a really practical one. And it's just the constraints of the building and the site is that, you know, if you're going to move here,
not going to have
you
a
ain't
car.
parking here. Yeah. I mean, I guess the risk is that people move in, have a car and then just park it on street somewhere else, which pushes problems down, but they're more likely maybe to park around the back in
and
if it slightly less.
If it does turn into a sort of super HMO, we heard of one recently that we discussed about this, didn't we? Where we've been reducing, and the defence, if you will, said then, well, people who live in cheap housing don't have cars, which doesn't really fly. But that was we've heard that argument before recently.
Yeah, I think that the previous one we saw was a fair distance further out of town than this one, isn't it? I mean, this one is pretty close. I mean, it's walkable to pretty much all the amenities in town. You know,
opposite a bus stop, you can walk to Sainsbury's within 5 minutes. Well,
yeah,
an able-bodied person can walk to Sainsbury's within 10 minutes. As I say, it's on a bus route. As flat as you're going to get anywhere in Frome. So those arguments are valid.
You know, as you say, that the door opening onto the road, well, that whole street opens straight onto the road, doesn't it? You know, unless you're going to knock it down, there's nothing much you can do about that.
Well, in fact, that one is set back perhaps 6 feet from the road anyway. With they've got a little bit of curtilage to it, so better than most.
Thanks.
I think it would be difficult to argue that parking is required, given that it was previously 9 flats with no parking. You know, and we know that this is the kind of accommodation that is needed in the town.
Yeah, it's not perfect, is it? But at the end of the day, we you know, there is a desperate need for this type of accommodation. It's this small, affordable or relatively affordable accommodation in Frome. So, and it was an HMO before. If anything, it's slightly bigger than it was before, I guess. Lizzie.
I think this is it. The owners and developers could actually have looked at it and said, well, let's make it into one big house.
Yeah.
And actually they've said, no, maybe the opportunity is better and the need is there for that, for smaller flat accommodation. And it's like, fair enough. You know, I think it's a really nice use of an existing structure. It brings a building back into life that's been derelict for a while and left alone for a while. So, yeah.
Jane, sorry, Rich, I just jumped in there. Jane, the thing that we've looked at before about next number of car parking spaces per house, does that only apply to new builds?
It does apply to new builds, and if you are adding additional bedrooms or, you know, such as an annex, sometimes it can come into play. But I think given that this, all right, it might be vacant now, but given that it's previous use, so effectively what is still its existing use is still in play, I'm not certain that Somerset County Council would be able to put that objection forward. So I'm not, as I say, I'm not 100% certain, but I think that will be the case here. I would hope that would be the case here.
Thank you.
It's given that when I looked on Google Earth, there's a massive space behind these buildings, isn't there? I never realised that was there until I actually looked. So there's a garden space. So if Paul was here, I'm sure he'd be saying cycle facilities. So if you can get a bike through the building to the back, if everybody could store their bike there, it'd be perfectly safe. And I think that would be a good option to create some storage space somewhere for bicycles.
They have on the plans actually shown.
Right, I couldn't remember.
So some freestanding lockable cycle storage.
Yeah, one of those big things. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, and each flat will have access to one of those. Okay, so am I am I getting that no objection? However, we would like the applicant to consider the erection of a wall to the front of the property to stop people from parking in that small space, and also enable bins to be put out for collection in that area.
Yep, that's fine for me. Good. Someone propose that, please. Thank you, Anne. Someone second. Thank you, Mark. Great.
That's unanimous. Thank you.
Rushing through them.
Okay, so next on our list is 1 Eagle Lane, number 532. So this is probably better known to you as the Kebab Shop, and the description is proposed alterations to the shop front. So the alterations essentially are, if you look at the building, you'll see that it currently has a recessed doorway, and then to the side of it there is a second door which enables access to, I presume, flats above. What they want to do is to close off the recess, so effectively have a front shop, a flat shop front. And there's a small alteration to the access door to the flats above, and they also want to put some lighting, 3 lights above the fascia, and remove an old canopy that was there. Again, I think I've sent you the comments from the ward councillor, who was particularly concerned about the proposed lighting and the impact that the straightening off of the shop front would have on the character of the area. You'll also, it's not a listed building, but it is in a conservation area. You'll also see from the comments of the Civic Society that they were concerned about the loss of the traditional timber shop front, with the central recessed doorway being placed with a straight aluminium shop front. They consider the design crude and unbalanced, and the materials are inappropriate. They don't like the traditional brackets projecting lanterns, which have no relationship to the shop front, and they have actually made reference to Mendit's adopted shop front design guidance, which does say in particularly where there is an old recessed doorway, that should be retained where possible, because it is part of the character and history of the area. So although we haven't had the conservation officer's comments yet, I suspect they will be concerned about the loss of that recessed doorway, and probably the traditional lanterns as well.
Who is the ward councillor? Jane, any ideas? Is it John Clark?
Yes. Market.
Market, yeah.
Yeah.
It's. I don't know what to say really. It's be nice if they took it off and put something more traditional back, full stop, wouldn't it? At the end of the day, but
what does a traditional kebab shop look like? I know that was as I'm being serious from now on. I thought, yeah, I mean, it was years ago. It was a ladies' clothes shop, so it's converted from that into a catering establishment. I don't like the lights that have been put across the front. There's 3 lights which look like the ones you get from B&Q to put outside your house to when somebody approaches your front door. Yeah. But that's detail. But I don't know what else we can say really.
How much of it changes the fabric of the building? Is any of it irreplaceable?
Whether the timber that is currently there is original, I couldn't say. I really don't know. I mean, it is possible. To change it to aluminium is probably, you know, not really appropriate in terms of the character.
Just thinking back to some jobs I've worked on in the past, shop fitters are notoriously they just cover things over. You know, it's just another board in front with a whole electric panel behind. Just put some screws on, it'd be fine. So how much of the original building remains behind what's there now? We don't really know, do we?
No. I think the loss of the recess is probably the main thing that will impact on the character of it, you know, in its street scene terms. And I think you're right, the lights could be something a little bit more in keeping, more properly traditional than the lights that they're proposing. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. You know, it has the signage on the fascia, as do a lot of the shops down there. But I do think, I suppose, if you lose that doorway now, you know, somebody ever does want to change it into another business and retain that traditional element, it's lost.
It's irreversible, isn't it? Once that doorway's gone, but everything else can be, you know, if another shop takes it over in a few years' time, they can, you know, take away the.
Does that recess serve a purpose at the moment? You know, does it create enough space for a couple of people to stand in while somebody walks past on the pavement? Because it can get quite busy there. I just wonder if taking that recess away makes for a narrower pavement at all.
No, I don't think. Well, yeah, I suppose it would if there was a lot of people queuing there. I mean, I'm not sure that's necessarily a planning reason to object to it. I think it's more about the loss of the character and the originality potentially. Does the
conservation officer have any input into this one?
They will do, because it's in a conservation officer. They'll be consulted, and as I say, their comments aren't, or they certainly weren't online when I looked earlier. But I imagine they will be similar to that.
I think that's what we've got to defer to, really, isn't it? If the conservation officer's got concerns, well, then it can't go ahead. I don't feel enough of an expert. I know I don't like the lights, but I don't feel enough of an expert to know how valuable that building is. Yeah.
It's not really a reason for objecting, is it? Not liking the lights. I mean, that's taste again.
But this comes quite soon after an application for a wine bar dead opposite, doesn't it? I don't know if people, planners, take things in the whole, or whether, I guess they just look at individual applications. But right opposite, there's going to be a development as well, so it's going to change the street scene.
I want to support them because they're a local business and they've been here for a long time. You know, so I want them to be spending money on it and making it a better premises.
And it looks, sorry,
go on,
it looks like they want to make internal layout changes as well, which presumably is to enable them to do things with the kitchen or the counter and stuff to make it a cool, you know, really nice modern place to go, which is great. And you know, investing in your business in our town centre is a really positive thing that we're really happy to see. It's just that balance with what the conservation officer might say needs to stay from the building. Yeah,
I agree with that, Lizzie.
Okay, so how about we say we're concerned about the loss of the recessed doorway, and would defer to the conservation officer's comments in this respect.
Yep, that sounds good. Excellent. Thank you. Someone propose that? That sounds excellent. Thank you, Lizzie. Second by Rich. Thanks very much. And
that's unanimous. Thank you. So that takes us to number 4, Gentle Street, which is both a full application and a list of building applications. The numbers 537 and 538 on our list. The description is the erection of a single-storey rear extension and reconfiguration of internal spaces. So just taken from the design and access statement that they've submitted with the application, the key objective of the proposals are to extend the ground floor to allow better circulation and connections to the garden, while providing an improved living space which respects the existing building. To design a new element which is sympathetic and respectful of the heritage of the existing building, but at the same time being distinct and legible as a contemporary addition. And to reconfigure the ground floor with minor demolition work and a new internal partition to improve internal rooms and circulation. Similarly, the upstairs will mirror the alterations to prove efficiency and functionality of the rooms. I know that when we talk about extensions to listed buildings, normally Paul, will remind us that an extension on a listed building, should actually be distinct from the original building, and not be a pastiche, which again is something that I know the conservation officers will also point out. They have had a pre-application with Mendip Council, and the response from the conservation officer was actually that they were happy that the extension will be clearly differentiated from the historic architecture and be of its own time. That they felt that it would, where it was replacing the simple glazed link on the same footprint, they felt that would improve that part of the house by allowing the original wall of the house to be more visible and less compromised by the conservatory. They don't consider that the reducing the connection between the original house and the garden would cause any harm. And yes, it similarly goes on, talks about the materials will contrast well, but will clearly be of a different, a different era. And so essentially they aren't objecting to those proposals.
Great. Thanks, Shane. Rich first.
Well, I almost agree 100% with the Civic Society's comments on this. I thought the design and access statement was really interesting. It was really well produced. It gives really good reasons why they're doing what they're doing. It gave some really good other examples of what it might look like. And my only real criticism of it is they've chosen something that I went, oh, that's horrible. But that's not a reason to complain. I just didn't like it. But I would have gone with one of the other suggestions that were in the design and access statement. But I guess that's taste. I haven't got any. But it seems to tick all those boxes that Paul keeps talking about. It's certainly, there's no overlooking issues. It seems to actually help the building. But I just don't like the finish. Yeah,
it's all the rage, though, isn't it? That finish. It's
there you go. But but so I've got no objections.
The Civic Society, having said all that, actually said they weren't objecting. Because the works are effectively reversible, so if you ever wanted to take it back to its original form, you could.
I think the use of the words unnecessarily brutalistic was a bit hard by the Civic Society. It was wow. Any other comments? I thought the design access statement was wonderful. I thought it was really great. I must admit, it was a pleasure to read it. Actually, in some ways, it was really informative. It's I guess as Jane, as you said, if Paul were here, I'm sure he would be singing praises for materials or whatever. That is his want, sort of thing. I mean, I personally didn't have too much issue with it. It is a big extension. There's no two ways about it. But a lot of the houses, if you go Google Earth along that gentle street, they've all got quite big extensions at the back, haven't they? Or a lot of them have. So.
Yeah, and I'm beginning to really enjoy applications that have photographs.
Yes.
Because it's so easy then to get a picture of what it looks like already. So yeah, great.
Any other comments? No.
So I'm taking it that's a no objection. And did we want to make reference to the design and access statement being very helpful?
Yes, please do. We want to see more like that.
Yeah.
Okay. It'll take a month of Sundays to read them all, but it's it was good at the end of the time.
Okay. So would you like to? Could you just have a vote on that one for me?
Oh yeah, sorry. Some opposed. Thanks, Rich. All those in favour. Oops.
That's unanimous. Thank you. So that will apply to both the full and the listed building application, just for clarification. And then the last one that I had on the list is 25C Bath Street, and it's number 540 on our list. So this is the change in use of change of use and conversion to a residential flat. I think the reason this needs permission isn't actually permitted development in this instance is because it is a listed building, and the only issue that I wasn't quite clear about was, given the proximity of the flat to the rear of the property 23 Bath Street, whether there were likely to be any noise implications. However, the Environmental Protection Officer hasn't objected on noise grounds, and I think Mark clarified that there was perhaps a building or something in between.
Well, if you, the way I see it, if you look at the building, the ground floor is now the pet shop, which was the betting shop. Above it, you've got the proposed flat. Between the flat and 23 Bath Street is Rogers & Co. estate agent. In fact, this adjoins Rogers & Co. and I think it's all part of the same building. I think it's all part of the same ownership. And it seems to me that the objections we've had about noise coming from 23 Bath Street centre around the yard at the back, or what used to be a yard, but that seems to be the well that surrounds the old, becomes the centre of the old co-op building where another development is proposed, and the back of 23 Bath Street. Now it seems to me that this is at least one building away from that. Without looking detailed at the plans, are there any windows that overlook to that, looking at it left-hand side of the building?
There will be windows at the rear, but looking at it in plan form, it's quite difficult to see how that relates to the sort of courtyard, or at least I wasn't 100% sure of its proximity just looking at it in plan form, because I haven't been around the back recently to have a look at it.
No, and I haven't looked at it either. It just, at first blush, it just seems to me that there was at least one more building in between them. So, and I think we've all said, or people have said, that accommodation in the centre of town is a good thing, and it's currently not being used.
And the Environmental Protection Officer doesn't have any issues with it either, Jane, does he? So, I mean, I guess we should we raise the issue of noise on the basis we've raised the issue of noise for everything else we've seen in that sort of area over the last few months. But
I think you're right, in the interest of fairness, and that there's still planning going on the other side of that. It probably would be fair to.
Yeah, because
I think because it's coming out the back, it comes out the back. Then there's another building, but there's also a kind of gap in the back, and then you get to the bit which is the sort of loft bar, which is quite a boisterous and wonderful place, as well as then the external seating area at the back of 23. So it is on the side of the building that is noisy from music and people as opposed to traffic. But you know, we've had this conversation before that if you move next door to a pub, you should be pretty aware that it's a pub.
Yes, absolutely.
There was a previous application just a little bit further up on Bath Street, which I think was previously the FDC law offices, and the application there for flats at the rear that was actually refused on noise grounds because there weren't any or seemingly any noise mitigation measures that had been put in. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think given that we've had concerns with various applications about noise in that area, we should raise it as a concern on this application.
This one does have a mention of secondary glazing as a noise mitigation measure, and it may be worth clarifying that they mean secondary glazing at the front and at the back.
Okay.
Yeah, we owe it to any future tenants, don't we, to make it as quiet as possible.
Yeah. Just because 23 Bath Street does have a late licence, doesn't it?
Yeah, till 2 a.m. I believe.
Yeah.
And the floor plans showed that as being a bedroom at the back as well. So maybe they want to rethink the choice of where the rooms are.
So
and looks as though she remembers 2 a.m.
I was just thinking, roll on the days when we could even think about being out until 2 a.m.
You're not likely to catch me out at 2 a.m.
They just start later these days. That's all it is.
I think the only time nowadays I'm up at 2 a.m. is if I'm going away on holiday and I've got a cheap flight somewhere.
Right. So, I mean, there's a couple of questions, isn't there? We would like, a couple of concerns.
Yeah.
So
if I say that we are concerned about the possible noise impacts to the rear bedroom, would like clarification that there are sufficient mitigation measures in place to deal with that.
Yeah. Is that enough to object, or are we just sort of no objection in principle, but?
Yeah, I don't object in principle, but I think it's only fair to actually ask for some kind of, to at least that it's been considered.
Okay. Yeah, I can agree with that.
Clarification. Okay, yes, so no objection in principle. However, we are concerned about the impacts of noise to the bedroom at the rear, and would like clarification of the noise impact measures or mitigation measures are in place, and to ensure that the secondary glazing is at both the front and the rear of the property.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Great. Can someone propose that, please? Thank you, Rich. Someone second. Thank you, Lizzie. And all those in favour?
And that's unanimous again. Thank you. So I haven't highlighted any based on the feedback that I've had for discussion, unless there are any others that we want to discuss. And I should just explain that I haven't highlighted the application on behalf of Mr. Dorrington for discussion. However, we should just acknowledge the fact that all councillors have looked at it and considered it, and no objection was raised. Because
if councillors do wish, if any councillor does wish to discuss this, then I'll leave the meeting.
No, I think we're fine.
Well, it was a pretty poor application. I'm joking.
for clarification, the application
I can get you into trouble. I shouldn't comment on it, but it's a regular there's 2 very large trees in my front garden which need regular maintenance, and that's all this is. It's not taking anything away, so just taking the tops out of them, really.
Great, thanks. Now I think there's no objections on any of the tree works in this particular.
Not even the monster tulip.
Well, yeah, tulip tree is an interesting one. Yeah. Oh,
Hannah's got a hand up.
Do we need to vote for Mark separately to the others without Mark voting? Or is...
I think as we haven't actually discussed it, I just raised the issue because it's a council application. I think we could, if you're happy to accept all the others, then we can do that as part of that one.
Yeah.
so if we can just vote on basically all the other applications that we've all looked at and have no comments or no objections on. Someone could propose that. Thank you, Anne. Someone second it. Thank you, Lizzie. And all those in favour.
And that's unanimous again. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody. The next planning meeting will be on the 22nd of April, 2021. And I'm guessing it's still going to be on Zoom, unless...
Yeah, as it stands at the moment, the regulations that enable us to hold virtual meetings will no longer be in force as of May sometime. I can't remember the exact date. But
7th, I think, something.
Yeah, but I think that's going to be debated further, given that some people may feel that it isn't safe to get people in room in a committee setting. So yes, the next one definitely will be what happens in May. We don't really know yet.
All right. Well,
Maybe we could have our meetings in Victoria Park.
that's what I was thinking, actually.